Hello everybody and welcome to Chess 24 and welcome to my roundup of today's games at the Tata Steel Masters. Of course, the Roland Garros of chess being around for over 75 years now, and today already round 3 in the tournament, but my goodness, were we in for a treat. Absolute chaos on the board and a lot of decisive victories. What can I say? No less than, the world champion going down in flames. Magnus Carlsen played a very dubious opening in my opinion. Went down against Wojciech. Liren-Jobava. Don't often see him lose. He did today against the up-and-coming Wesley So, putting Wesley, who is now officially under the US flag, means that Wesley is now on the live list anyway, the current US number one, having overtaken Hikaru Nakamura. Ivanchuk crushed Van Wely in a very convincing way, and Liren-Jobava, well, another opening experiment gone wrong. There were draws in Bashir versus Rajabov, and there were also draws in the game between Saric and Fan. Giri Caruana is ongoing as I speak, but I believe that Fabiano is going to be able to hold on there. Check out Jan Gustafsson and his roundup video for that game potentially, but for now I'm going to concentrate on 3 games that really caught my eye from this round, those being So-Aronian, Ivanchuk versus Van Wely, and Ding Liren versus Jobava. So let's have a look at them. Let's start with Ding Liren versus Jobava. And Ding with Wijk, d4, d6, knight f3, knight f6, c4, and already as early as move 3, we are used to this now from Badur. He plays all kinds of wacky offbeat systems, and today went for the move bishop f5. Of course, the normal move in this position is to go g6, which would transpose into a very standard King's Indian position, but he went bishop f5. He also tried something a bit wacky earlier in the year, which didn't work, and you would have thought, well, Badur, he would have learnt from his mistakes. Clearly not, because he played the move 3c6 against Shak Mamajarov at the Olympiad. I remember commentating on this game, but I remember that after knight c3, bishop f5, d5 was a very good move by Shak. And this bishop started to lack squares, but also it was difficult to see how you were getting the bishop on f8 out into the game. So after d5, h6, g3, c5, knight h4, already around here after f4, Badur was getting slowly squeezed and had to resort to the very ugly rook g8. Actually went down in flames there. So this time he went bishop f5, but actually after the following moves we see that a very similar position arises after 6 moves, and once again we see this d5 move. It seems like that is the key idea in the position, fixing this pawn on d5 and making it very difficult for black to ever get his f8 bishop out. Badur once again went c5, but I really feel like this whole opening is just a load of junk for black. White is just, it's easier to develop, got a big space advantage. All he needs to do is getting e4 and f4, and black is close to being crushed. So here, d5, I really like it. c5 castles g5, and now Ding played the very decent move, pawn to h4, challenging this structure on the king's side. Of course, Badur played g5 because he had to find a way to try and get his bishop out. And the problem with going with g6 is that this guy is going to always feel very uncomfortable there, lacks lots of squares. The move knight h4 comes to mind. It's just terrible for black. So g5 makes sense, but h4 is very good, because now after g4 and knight e1, everything is secure on the king side. Everything is blockaded, and this bishop now has got squares to go to as well. So after knight e1, bishop g7. Of course, Ding hit that bishop with e4. Bishop came back to h7, knight d3, and already here you can say white is much, much better. Space advantage, control over e5. Bado has to do a lot of work to get any kind of shot at gaining equality. Well, he tried a6, which was countered by a4, queen c7, and bishop e3. Just calm development. There's no need to go crazy here with white. And now, again, in typical Jobava style, we saw a move that is way too optimistic. The move castles queenside. Maybe he should castle short, but even that doesn't look entirely appealing. He has to try something else. But castles queenside is going to get punished. And my goodness, how Ding did it, in the style he did it. Rook b1. Excellent move. Just planning to open up the b file with pawn to b4. And notice how this knight on d3, for example, is just ideally placed to support that, controls e5. And the big point is that this bishop looks like it's out of the game at the moment on g2, but imagine you could get these guys working together towards b7. Well, we'll see how that happens in just a few moves. So rook b1 was played, and e6 by Jobava. b4. Well, Bado tried to do something with e6, tried to challenge, but actually it's too late. And after e takes d5, it was the move b takes c5 that perhaps Bado missed. This intermediate move, opening up the c file, the b file, and actually white's army just crashes through here. There's absolutely nothing that Bado can do already as early as move 17. After b takes, for example, were he to go d takes c5, well, now you can hit the queen with bishop f4. The queen goes at queen a5, but knight takes d5 is very simple and winning. So you can't do that. Knight takes d5, c takes d5 is just a pawn with a massive attack still. If you go d takes e4, then c takes d6, queen takes d6, queen b3 is excellent, threatening mate on b7. The queen comes back to b8, but once again, an absolute knockout blow. Knight d5, beautiful move. The point is that if pawn takes d3, knight e7 check, king c7, bishop f4 is curtains. And if you don't take on d3, if you play knight takes d5, well, now you open up the c file. So takes, rook fc1, queen c7, queen takes b7 is actually mate. So it's just complete annihilation here. So I think that's what he missed. So he went for d takes c4, but didn't help, because now e5, excellent move. Now we see that how this bishop, it was lurking, and now it's really going to finish the game. It's just too much pressure down on b7, threatening the knight. And after knight takes e5, simply rook takes b7. The queen had to move, queen a5, knight takes knight, pawn takes knight, and now a lovely little move as well, queen to a1, getting out of the way of the rook, threatening, protecting the knight on c3. And all white needs to do is get a queen to the b file, and you're delivering mate. The king on c8 is too weak. And in fact, after rook d3 went queen b2, and Bado resigned, because you're just delivering mate after rook b8, and the queen comes in. So a great victory there by Ding. But again, we see Bado. He's a genius. He really is one of the most original players out there. But sometimes his originality can really hurt him, and today again slightly surprising, because the experiment went so wrong against Mamedyarov early in the year that he repeated a similar opening. Today he got punished. I think that's the last we're going to see of him playing that. Next game, let's have a look at the game Ivanchuk-Van Wely. This is really a fantastic game as well. Ivanchuk with white, and we had a mainline Sicilian, Scheveningen, almost, apart from the move queen to e2 by Mr. Ivanchuk. Now, this move you see a lot nowadays in mainline Sicilians. In the old days, you would have seen moves like, well, I mean, the main line is still f3. Of course, bishop e2 is the absolute classical main line of this opening. Or even the move queen d2. This is far more standard. You put the queen on d2 in open Sicilians and look to castle long. But no, queen e2, it's a really interesting way to play the position because it's similar to queen d2 in as much as you're looking to castle long. But what it also does is it indirectly protects e4 or threatens things down the e line and allows you to go g4, g5 quickly because the queen still protects g4. I actually really like putting the queen on e2 in these Sicilians, and this game was a model game for me in this line. Look how Van Wely just got smashed to pieces here. Well, Van Wely played a6, that's pretty normal, castles, and now played the move bishop d7. Bishop e7 is the normal way to go, isn't it, in these positions? Developing this guy first. Maybe he was worried about takes e5, although after knight d5 I don't really see much going on here for white. So maybe he should have tried that, because after bishop d7, you know, suddenly black is neglecting his development on the king's side, and the king's still in the center, and Ivanchuk punishes this quite seriously. He plays the move f4, of course. First move we want to do, we want to gain space on this side of the board and follow it up with g4. And of course, rook c8. Well, the previous game seen in this line went knight takes d4, bishop takes d4, bishop c6. But even here after g4, again, white is so quick in getting his attack going and black's yet to develop. I really like his chances. So after f4, in this game, Van Wely played rook c8. Nice little standard Sicilian move, king to b1. The king is always better on the b file in these positions. Queen c7 by Van Wely, and now a really nice move by Ivanchuk, knight to b3, avoiding the exchange of pieces, because now the queen can sometimes get hit by a knight d5, and it can be awkwardly placed on c7, as we'll see in the game actually. And here, so after knight b3 was played, again Van Wely decided to neglect development, played b5, but now g4 was extremely strong, just threatening to go g5. And after b4, Ivanchuk calmly played knight a4, and we see that the problem with his queen on c7 is that black would love to take on e4 here, but bishop b6 simply collects a whole piece. So instead he tried the move e5, which from a positional structural sense is desirable now that no knight can come to d5, but the problem with it's just too slow, and we see how Van Wely is punished for not getting his pieces out in this position, because Ivanchuk played the brilliant g5, just played it anyway, and after bishop g4 it looks as though black is winning material, but Ivanchuk actually worked it all out. Queen to g2, this is just absolutely brilliant, priceless Ivanchuk stuff. Queen g2, you have to take the rook off, and now the whole point of this variation, this absolutely spectacular move, bishop takes a6. The first move that comes to mind is g takes f6, but maybe black is just surviving here. He's an exchange up. The bishop is not really under threat just yet, and maybe he can get organised. But bishop takes a6, the star move, means that white is actually threatening three pieces at the same time. So despite being a rook down, he will win material back. And here, were black to play what looks like the standard, the first move that comes to mind, rook a8, that again runs into bishop b6, hitting the queen, queen d7, and bishop b5. And it's just absolutely hopeless, this position for black. White is winning back a minimum a piece. He's already got a pawn, and the pin that here is just, well, it's 1-0 very, very quickly. Black just can't ever get safe. So bishop takes a6 was brilliant. Van Wely tried knight d7, but now white just collected on d1, rook a8, and bishop b5. Okay, so taking stock. He's an exchange down, but his attack is still flowing. And after bishop e7, once again, a very precise move by Ivanchuk. Pawn to f5, brilliant. And the point is that after keeping the centre closed, not allowing any of these knights to come to e5 was a very well judged decision, actually. Wely played queen b7, hitting the bishop, but another very accurate move, c4, protecting that guy and keeping things shut on the queen side, because after b takes c3, knight takes c3, well, now you invite the knight back to d5 as well, and that's the last thing you need in your life. So c4, but that was probably better than the move he actually played, because after castles, ran into a very nice thematic move, pawn to f6. The point is that bishop has to go back to d8, gf6, gf6, and this is mate. So you have to go back to d8, but now you just collect on d6, and all of white's pieces suddenly, once that pawn on d6, just flood the position, and there's nothing black can do. And in fact, Wely tried to shuffle around for a bit, and then rook takes d7 came, so actually we got a position now where white has got a weird material imbalance. He's got a bishop and two knights for two rooks, but given the fact that he's got an extra two pawns as well, it's more than enough control over the d5 square, and the knights came in as well, and look how he just queen d5, beautiful move on move that he's centralizing that queen, just total domination. It's just complete domination. Wely tried to wriggle around for a bit, Ivanchuk mopped up another pawn, but suddenly he got three pawns now, got the king safe. And look at these knights on move. I mean, it's just absolute art, isn't it? Those knights supported by the pawns. Queen came down to a1, but after knight d6, move 38, Wely rightly had enough and threw in the towel. So a great little win for Ivanchuk, who is showing some form. And I agree with everybody who says, well, we all love Vasily Ivanchuk. He's a character, he's a personality, he's eccentric, he's different, he's a genius. It all depends what we're going to get on the day. We can get an Ivanchuk that can beat anybody in the world, or we can get one that goes into meltdown. It seems that at the moment he's on the right path, so we'll keep an eye out for him. The last game I'd like to quickly go over with all of you guys is the game between So and Aronian, and what a result for Wesley So beating Liren-Jobava today. We had a Scotch, which we don't see so much, and knight takes c6. The main line is here, knight d5, and the first move that is slightly unusual is the move that So played, knight to d2. The absolute main line is c4, where black can either play knight b6, or you can pin this pawn with bishop a6. A lot of theory on that line. Really, the Scotch came back into fashion thanks to Garry Kasparov, who did a lot of work on it, reinvigorated some of the lines. Still not seen that much at top level though nowadays. That said, it can be a really dangerous surprise weapon, and maybe that's what Wesley did today. He chose it as a surprise weapon. And in fact, perhaps the first surprise was the move 8, knight to d2, which is it's a flexible move. It doesn't commit to c4. It kind of asks black what he's doing. The knight might come around to f3 to protect the e5 pawn, and it's an interesting move. And here what almost everybody does is play the move g6. That looks extremely logical, just looking to develop the bishop to g7. But in this particular game, Liren played a move which I'm not sure I'm totally keen on. It is very double-edged, move rook to b8, because in a lot of positions in this Scotch variation you want to castle queenside with black, so immediately that gives up that right. And secondly, I'm not really sure exactly what it does, and it does leave this pawn, as we'll soon see, slightly weak. So, not sure. It has been played before. c4 is the obvious move, and now knight f4. The other top-level game with this actually saw Nepomniachtchi, perhaps one of the leading exponents in the world in the Scotch, beat Karyakin in Moscow 2011 with knight b4. But in this game, Liren played knight f4, queen e3 hitting the knight. That's pretty much the best move. knight g6, and now f4. So he supports his pawns in the centre. And of course, black has to react to that. He has to either go f6, like Aronian did in the game, or d6 could have been a completely different game. And it looks like it's a perfectly decent move, because if you take, you can just go rook b7 again, and white's king is in the centre, and a lot of tempi needed to get developed. So f4, f6 is similar, because now after queen takes a7, which was played in the game, also another interesting move was to go bishop d3, probably the move I would have settled for, because I like getting my pieces developed. And the point is that after takes, you can't go queen takes because of bishop takes g6 check, winning the queen. If you go knight takes, I think you can just castle. And with white, you can claim that, you know, black's king, it's stuck in the centre, there's an open E and F file, and it's going to be very difficult for the king to get safe, so there's probably compensation here. But queen takes a7 is perfectly fine too. Rook b7, the queen came back to f2, f takes e5, and now f5. A great move here by Wely, keeping some lines shut. But after knight f4, queen f3, queen f7, it seemed as though after the murky complications, black was doing okay. White kicked the knight g3, knight h5, played bishop e2, the knight came back to a very decent square, and after g4, d5. And it actually looked, when I was watching the game in progress, it looked as though black was gaining the upper hand in this position. And after g5, e4, this was all expected, so you hit the queen, intermediate move. Queen h3 looks like the only move, and it was here where I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw this move on the board. But Liren-Jobava made a horrendous blunder, so you can see it still happens at top level. Played the move knight g8, which loses on the spot. He should have played knight d7, and the point is that after castles you can play knight e5, and the computer amazingly gives a very funny line. It thinks it's a draw by repetition after the move queen c3, knight d7, queen h3, knight e5 as the best line of play, unbelievably. Of course, human chess probably wouldn't have gone like that, but just goes to show that what these computers, the imagination they have actually. Instead though, knight g8 was played. I nearly fell off my chair when I saw it, because now bishop h5, pinning the queen against the king, is winning. And the point is that after g6 you've got f takes g6, and you uncover an attack on the bishop, and the rook, being so oddly placed on b7, doesn't cover the bishop. And so if you take here, queen takes c8 is with check, and you can resign. Well, Liren played bishop takes h3, but now you've got this intermediate check, and you win that knight on g8. King d7, f takes g8, played, funnily enough, the move b3, as suggested by the computer, was very good as well. It's an amazing idea that you can play this. Don't even take the knight, just threatening to go bishop b2, win the rook instead. But f takes g8 was good enough, and after rook takes g8, the rest of the game was, well, Wely made it look easy. Some tricky moments, but actually in the end, with the whole extra piece plus the two extra pawns, just needed to consolidate, and won the game in about 50 odd moves. Yes, around here. Not really much to comment on in the final phase, because it was just a mop-up job. So what a great day we had in Tata. Really hope the action continues to be the same over the next few rounds. Hope you've enjoyed this roundup, and remember to check out Chess24 for the live broadcast, and also all of the other fantastic features that are on the website. Become a premium member, special price during Tata Steel. But for now, have a great evening.